You mention in your second book that during the First World War, Bharat turned out to be Germany's greatest disappointment, since instead of an uprising, the country saw Congress pledge its wholehearted and unswerving support to the British. A resolution was passed in the Imperial Legislative Council on 8 September 1914, wherein they pledged unwavering loyalty to the King Emperor and also offered to share the heavy financial burden of the war. Considering this, do you think that the leaders of the pre-independence era lacked political wisdom, and what led the political leaders at that time to decide on showing loyalty as an essential need for independence rather than an uprising? Because it seems that the unwavering loyalty and sharing of the financial burden of the war may have led to the British delaying independence of India, as they saw India as a place from where they can get both good army and finances.
I don't think they were offering their services to the empire hoping for independence, because until then the discussion of independence was not even on the table. Until 1924, which is where the second book ends, their fight is for equal treatment at par with Australia, New Zealand and Canada as proud colonies of the empire. They were not asking for independence one bit. Nowhere. The ones who were asking for independence were branded extremists and nationalists. And nationalist was being used as a cuss word even then. And they were being told that they must be committed to mental asylums for hoping to achieve independence. This was the language of all the leading stalwarts of the Congress. Shri M.K. Gandhi's political mentor used the word lunatic for people who were asking for Purna Swaraj. This was his language for Lala Lajpat Rai, Bipin Chandra Pal, Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Shri Aurobindo Ghosh. These were people who were called the extremists within the Congress. So the divide was between moderates and extremists, and the nationalists versus liberals. That was the language used. The liberals wanted to be part of the empire. The nationalists wanted to be free of the empire. Go figure. This is the origin of liberalism in this country. And it continues to be so, because it continues to serve the interests of New York Times and Washington Post. So my point is that I'd be very careful and wary of using freedom movement and independence movement for that particular period, and I'd be careful about who is it being used in the context of. The better part of the Congress was not batting for independence. This is not a political rhetoric. This is there, and I've reproduced all their annual proceedings. Vande Mataram was converted to Vande Mata Pitarau. The Pitarau there was the British flag. And people were going about circulating these pamphlets. Amma, Appa. That's the language that they were using. And they were proudly saying this. The first conclave of, Indian National Congress was not a party. It was a political platform where all like-minded people would meet. The party under the umbrella of which they met was the Indian Political Union, IPU. So when they met, how did they meet? Why is it that A.O. Hume has a role to play in this? Why is the British man taking an interest in this? What reports did he have access to in terms of intelligence reports that he decided that I need to create a safety valve because we are looking at a situation that is equal to or worse than the 1857 mutiny? The best part is, the literature that I've relied on this particular subject, on this particular phase, is both left and right in that particular sense. R.C. Majumdar and S.R. Mehrotra, who's a communist historian, both of them are saying the same thing. And until the 1960s, or even mid-1950s, communists and the Congress had a love-hate relationship. How did they get so cozy? You'll have to read it further. I'll explain that subsequently later. But the point is, the origin of liberalism in this country was pro-colonial in nature. Now, what you make of it, I leave it to you. And the clawing patriotism that they displayed, it's positively embarrassing. It's with the zeal of a new convert that they embraced it, and it makes for very embarrassing read. No wonder whether it's the Japanese or anybody else basically said, Indians, sorry, you're a slave race, you don't know how to fight. And it's because of the representation of this particular group, which was projected as the mainstream group.